For this week's exercise Mythbuster, I'm going to talk about how raising the question of if you strengthen one arm or upper extremity, will it also strengthen the opposite extremity? I think obviously most people think, of course not. Absolutely not. You still have to do work and strength train the opposite side, but that might not be completely true. So in fact, you can strengthen the contralateral side even only working one extremity. And the way this occurs is a couple different mechanisms. So first of all, this effect that occurs is called the contralateral strength training effect, and it was figured out during a experiment they did in 1894. So it's been around for over 100 years already. So a couple of mechanisms that are shown through this effect are first of there's the spillover effect of the neural drive of the untrained side that initiates muscular adaptations of the control system. Secondly, there are neuromuscular adaptations in the control system of the trained limb that can be accessed by the untrained limb. And so what this means is that neural drive is the way the muscles are activated by the central nervous system. So you have those neural connections between the brain and the muscles. And with that neural connection, because it's throughout the entire body, your body adapts to only strengthening that one side by allowing it to cross over to the opposite side, which is pretty cool. So there are a couple other mechanisms that occur during this training effect. First of all, they're muscular mechanisms. So there are adaptations within muscles that contribute to increasing force generating capacity. And so because of this adaptation, we create more force through those neural connections, which is part of the reason why it works. And these adaptations include hypertrophy and muscle enzyme concentrations, both which are part of strength training. So these adaptations will not occur, though, in relation to fiber type or muscle cross-sectional areas. So it means that I may gain more strength in the opposite side, but it won't change my fiber type. I won't change from type 1 to type 2 or different fiber connections. And when we look cross-sectionally at a muscle, it's not going to change that either. The last type of mechanisms are called neural mechanisms, and so these use EMG studies to look at the muscle electricity. And so the neural drive, remember the way muscles are activated by the central nervous system, could be increased to agonist and synergist muscles, but decreases at antagonist muscles. So what that means is, let's say we're going to do a bicep curl. If the agonist muscle is our bicep brachii and our synergist muscle is our brachioradialis, since both do elbow flexion, our antagonist muscle would be triceps because that does elbow extension. So what that means is through these neural mechanisms, we're going to be able to increase the agonist and synergist muscles, so biceps and brachioradialis, but it's going to decrease those triceps because it's going to decrease those agonist muscles. All right? So out of the story, how the story goes is, yes, actually you can increase strength. The downside is you're not going to get a whole lot of hypertrophy with that point. Honestly, adding weight, like doing typical strength training on both extremities, is going to give you 2 times more strength gains than just using the contralateral strength training effect. So if you're really looking to build muscle, you're better just doing double the work. Sorry. Welcome to this week's exercise Mythbuster. And what we're trying to do here is just answer all those burning questions you have about exercise and figure out if they're true or not. So the first one that I get a lot of patients asking me about is, if I strengthen one side, can it just travel to the next side? So if you just strengthen one arm, will it just automatically strengthen the other one? And the answer is yes, it will. So this effect is called the contralateral or opposite side strength training effect. It was figured out in 1894 when they did an experiment and figured out, yes, actually, muscles can be strengthened on the opposite side that you're training them, which is pretty crazy. So there are a couple reasons why this happens. So there's a nerve connection called the central nervous system that is a way for that your muscles get connected to your brain. So your brain tells you what your muscles, the brain sends a signal to your muscles telling them to, oh hey, I'm gonna move, or hey, I'm gonna relax. And so this huge system of nerves is what really is responsible for this effect to happen. So first of all, if I'm training this side a lot, sometimes that information spills over to the other side so that the muscles on this side start kicking in and saying, hey, you know, they're working too hard over there, so we're going to take some of it also. So, and that causes those strength gains and adaptations. Another way is, so because I'm training this side, and like I said, it kind of spills over through that whole central nervous system. Sometimes that untrained limb will say, hey, you know, I want to join the party. So they actually use those nerves, kind of come around and access what your brain is telling your training limb to do, and they take back that information. And so that's how, another way they can make strength gains. And it's possible that both of these mechanisms are involved. So there are a couple other ways that the muscle is responsible for strength gains. So when I'm really strengthening this side, I'm creating more force within these muscles that's going to allow you to lift heavier weights and go faster and control it coming down. And so that's going to really increase as I'm doing this type of training. And it's going to mean bigger muscles, and it's going to mean more amounts of enzymes in your muscles, which are part of gaining that muscle. And then there are a couple other nerve ways that it mechanizes. And so with that, they look at the electricity that's conducted in all your muscles using what's called electromyography. And that's just where they stick a bunch of needles in your skin and into your muscle to figure out how that muscle is firing. And so there are different parts of the muscle. So let's say we're just doing a bicep curl, just like that, okay? So that bicep is one type of muscle. It's doing most of the work, okay? Well, there's another muscle that also makes that elbow bend like that. So those two muscles are going to work together. So using this type of effect actually increases those muscles because they're working together. The muscle that's not working is the triceps back here, because that usually straightens the elbow. And so when I want to bend the elbow, it's going to shut off. It's just going to reduce and not be working as hard because we don't need it to. So I'm going to be curling up like this. These two muscles are the big ones that are working, and they're going to make this one shut off. So the moral of the story is, yes, you can only work out one side and make gains on the opposite side in strength. However, Cliff Note version is, you're not going to get as strong as you normally would if you're actually lifting weights with this side that you weren't training. You're actually going to get 2 times strength gains lifting weights with both sides than you would just one. So you still have to do all the work. Sorry.